saying to Glenn.
Okay, well, Glenn is part of me.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Glenn and I are seamlessly joined. Right, Glenn? Yes, sir. Okay, let's go. I'm ready.
You're ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
I just want to make sure you're ready. And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the world according to the ready man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. Of course,
why am I the only one wearing a necktie?
Because it's 2021.
It's infernally hot.
Yeah, it's like an inferno where we're all living.
Not in this room. It's very cool.
Well, you're blessed,
cool
and
we're cool people.
And thank you for always allowing me to have a clean intro. And but of course, I want to welcome the president of Conservative Talk Radio from 93.1 WIBC. Bam, the future and the present, and of course.
Hey, real quick, I do want to point out the first show I was here, I said, it's Ben Stein. I feel like I should really dress up. Judah's like, no, wear whatever you want. It'll be great.
And of course, joining us, managing editor of amgreatness.com, Ben, the obsolete man Boychuk. How are you, sir?
Why is he obsolete, if I may ask?
Well,
Twilight Zone reference.
It's a Twilight Zone reference.
My room is going to blow up at the end of this episode.
Yes, because he's a dissenter. And of course, this show wouldn't be complete without America's humble servant, writer, actor, provocateur, saint, sinner, lover, father, mathematician, statistician, lover, sinner, but of course, most importantly, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein. Hello, sir. How are you?
I operate only by own. I have decided that I can have one tool with me, and that is a penknife. And I can do things with a penknife that normally take an entire hospital staff to do.
So you're referring to like a Swiss Army knife, or
a Swiss switchblade?
Oh, that's not a pen knife.
No. It's a very dangerous.
It's a switch, but it's a yes. And gratefully we're all not in the same room. But Ben Boychuk, why don't you take us out with the first story of the night?
Well, so lots of big news today, but the biggest one is that the New York District Attorney, Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance,
the dumbest of the dumb,
has indicted the Trump organization, and in particular, the chief financial officer of the organization, Alan Weisenberg.
Weisenberg, yeah.
I think it was Wesselberg.
That's a good question. But let's get our crack research team on that. But the man who is 83 years old was perp walked in cuffs because apparently he's the modern day incarnation of John Dillinger. But the allegations are.
I was. Wait a second. Judah has told me many times that I am the modern day equivalent of John Dillinger.
Yes, I was. I was referring.
I think we all know.
Okay, so Ben Stein, basically, as you called what he's doing, and thank you, Ben Boychuk, for that. Basically, $1.7 million in supposed that he didn't pay in taxes. He gave him an 83-year-old man the perp walk, and as you said before the show, it's absolutely sinister.
It's Gestapo tactics. There's no doubt about it. We are now fully in 1984 land, Gestapo land. For those of you who have not read it, I very strongly urge you to read a book called Darkness at Noon by a very famous writer named Arthur Koestler about show trials in Stalin's Russia. And this is a show trial by the powers that be to suppress Trumpism and the will of the people as expressed through Trump to have a different form of government from the form of government of the buddy system and the beautiful people in Washington controlling all of our lives.
And it's also, might I add, Rob Kendall, a warning shot to anybody that has ever been in contact with Trump, like you, Rob. He's your buddy. You interviewed him. You are on the list. And anybody that's ever done business with Trump, then the whole organization, You missed it, Ben Boychuk. He has a
I
Make
saw it. It
America
looked
Great.
great.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
And so, but Rob Kendall, anybody that's come into contact with Trump is, I mean, we brought this up, but now it's coming.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? They're sending the message to everyone. We have taken this guy out. He's a billionaire. He was the most powerful man on the planet. We've taken him out. You can and will be next. It's about sending a message, not just to Trump supporters, but any conservative, anybody who dares rock the boat, anybody who takes on the cabal. You can be next. Get in line.
I can only say that prosecutorial discretion is such an evil thing when it is in the hands of a person who is obviously not well and extremely stupid. And he did this in a fake sex case involving the head of the World Bank, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, I think was his name. And he has no fear of breaking precedent against the innocent.
And neither does the woman, Loretta, whatever her name is. I mean, nobody's going to go against her, Ben Boychuk, because
Loretta Lynn?
No, not Loretta Lynn. The one that's taking over, the prosecutor that's handling.
Prosecutors coming in.
Yeah, the prosecutor that's handling the case, Ben Boychuk. This is really, as Ben said, it's sinister, it's frightening, and I mean, if you're Donald Trump, there doesn't need to be any evidence. This man has had a scope up his ass for 6 years with trials, and I don't see an ending in sight, Ben Boychuk.
Right. So here's what I don't understand. Now, I guess the number that we're supposed to quake at is the 1.7 million. Was it 1.6, 1.7?
1.7, yeah.
So, all right. So here's what I don't understand. The investigation spans, not the investigation itself, but the scope of the investigation covered something like 15 years, which would have meant it covered when Trump was operating the business. Okay. The prosecutors collected some 3 million documents.
Wow.
Yeah. How you like that? And this is what we end up with.
Yeah,
they didn't actually indict Trump.
1.7 million is a joke for people
in the context of that organization. Yeah. And
Ben Stein, he raises a great point. Trump has been under audit for God knows how many years. Everybody's been trying to take him down for God knows how long. And this is what they come up with. And this goes to show you what you always say. If they want you, Ben, doesn't matter. There's coming to get you.
There's nothing scarier in the United States of America than prosecutorial discretion. When it's in the hands of someone who has no idea of what is right and what is wrong, or what is the constitutional way of doing things, what is the way we do things in America to make sure that this country is run clean and neat, it's very, very scary. We now have government by bullying and oppression. It's a very scary day.
Ben, we're having an issue with your sound for a second. I'm sorry.
I said it's a very scary day.
This is why, Judah, George Soros put all that money into getting these prosecutors elected. He recognized that. And for years, he has been pumping millions and millions of dollars into getting these county prosecutors elected because they can do stuff like this.
Very, very acutely put. And again, a reason to be very scared. And I don't know what we do about it, except I just don't know what we do about it. It's a very, very bad thing. That on top of what looks like just possibly, another national lockdown. Scary stuff is going on here, boys. Scary stuff.
And Ben, you raise a good point. Ben Boychuk, he raises a good point of, I don't know what we do or any of that stuff. And I think the thing that, Ben, that people don't realize is it's eventually going to come to them. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. If we allow this to happen, you could be next.
Well, at least two things, it seems to me. One is, we've got some hedge fund guys on the right who presumably are interested in politics. Maybe they should be funding some of these races too. In particular, in California, there are recall campaigns underway in Los Angeles County and in San Francisco focused on 2 Soros prosecutors. And the way you get at it is this way. You just show people what their quality of life is. When you suddenly are releasing people with no bail and you're turning them loose within, 12 hours of their arrest. In some cases, some of these, for example, Antifa rioters, like in New York City, were barely in jail for an hour or two before they returned. They've been arrested 3, 4, 5 times.
Ben Stein, he actually raises an exceptional point. We've let out stone cold criminals in the last year and a half out of prison with zero bail, people that have looted stores, people that have caused billions of dollars in damage to our great country. And this 83-year-old man is being indicted. Not even, we don't even know if it's true or not, or given the opportunity to pay back if those things were true. And it's really an amazing thing, Ben. It
is. I strongly recommend to all of you who are watching to go to your nearby bookstore if you have one. I hope you do, and buy or order Darkness at Noon. It's exactly this. A guy in Soviet Russia started out. The guy's got a lot of strikes against him, and they are nailing him for lying about various statistics that he kept. And this guy happens to have an incredible power of memory, and he can recall exactly what he wrote down from 20 years before. And it's absolutely clear cut, Tim, absolutely clear cut, that he did nothing wrong. Doesn't matter. They went after him. It ends, I don't know, I think Ben Boychuk nodded as he had read the book. It ends in a most horrific way, and it's just not going to end well at all in this country. And let me back up and say, I live in a neighborhood with a lot of rich people. I am not one of them. I happen to have been dropped here by a spaceship and don't belong here. And our 1.7 million is a joke to well-to-do people, not worth amassing 3 million pieces of documents. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Just crazy.
And somebody wants to know something. And MD Mello asked a question about George Soros, what he is. Here's the deal about George Soros. And this has been so I'm not saying anything that he didn't say himself. George Soros is a Jew. When he was, I believe, about 12 years old, he also became a Nazi collaborator.
Wait a minute. That's a really.
He admitted it on CBS. He admitted it on CBS to Steve Croft that he helped do certain things. And when Steve Croft asked him basically if he felt any guilt, he said, "No, I don't." And you could look up that Steve Croft interview. I've written a piece for it for The Spectator, and the editor there did do a background check, and he was shocked to see that CBS interview with George Soros. So I don't even know exactly how to describe somebody like George Soros. Yes, he was 12 years old, but as you could see, you can't make a Bond villain up as evil as George Soros, Ben Boychuk.
Tell more, because he's done some other kind of questionable things too.
I mean, he tried to break the pound. He's banned in he's banned in France for insider trading. So this is a guy that is continually, like I said, one of the worst Bond villains. You couldn't create, Ben Boychuk, a Bond villain like George Soros.
No, yeah. So he made billions of dollars in finance, and so and in currency trading, and so he's amassed enormous wealth. He has a foundation called the Open Society Foundations, plural, that distributes money all over the world for left-wing causes. The Hungarian government has shut down some of his operations there, and so he's a very rich guy, very dangerous guy. His money funds a lot of left-wing causes in the United States, and we need to be better on our side encountering that sort of thing.
Very, very scary and upsetting, Ben Boychuk. And how do we do that? I say, for one thing, we have got to get into these races for prosecutor and make sure we have some decent prosecutors. And for another thing, we have to make it known, just as Judah obviously did in The Spectator, what kind of man we're dealing with.
Yeah, and I wish I was making something like that up, Rob Kendall. I truly do. I can't imagine it being 9 or 12 at that time, but as you could see, he really hasn't changed his inner beliefs.
Where was Judah? Where was he?
Hungary.
At age 12, he was in
Hungary.
So he works for the Iron Cross, or what's it? No, the Red Cross. What's it called?
I'm not sure. And that the story that I don't recall the specifics of that story. And that story, that Croft interview was 10, 15 years ago now, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still a
Yeah,
story.
no, I know it is. I just, so the details.
It's hard to remember the exact
details. Are fuzzy.
Yeah, but the thing that was most telling about Ben Stein, when asked if he felt bad about this, it was a no.
Sociopathic behavior.
Yeah.
But the point is, he's a really smart guy, and he knows how to get things done. He's a bad dude, but he knows how to get things done. And he recognized years ago, when Republicans were focused on national elections, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, presidency, hey, no. The immense power lies in these law enforcement officials, and nobody's paying attention to these elections. And by comparison, I can win these races for pennies on the dollar. You look at what's going on in New York, Soros guy. You look at what happened in St. Louis with the McCloskeys, the Soros person. These radical left prosecutors, most of them are funded by George Soros.
I think
terrifying story, and as you say, a Bond villain to be sure, only no pretty girls.
But to end this segment, I think the funniest story of the week is the 135,000 extra ballots in the New York mayoral race that were added in by accident, that were like test ballots, accident. 135,000, but there's never any issues.
135 or 135,000?
135,000. Yes, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
Although I have to say, I'm way behind the curve on that 135,000 ballot story. I did not even see that.
Well, the part of the problem is, Ben Stein, so much news comes out so quickly, these stories get buried. And of course, no major news network is going to pick up a story like that because, well, it's ironic. But of course, Ben Boychuk, they love your show. They love your shirt in the chat room. And I want to remind everybody, even if you listen to us here, please download the show at Apple Podcasts or wherever your podcasts are downloadable. And of course, subscribe to Ben's email for news and information, benstein.substack.com. Like, for the record, we're not going to be doing a show Saturday night. We will be doing our July 4th show tomorrow night for all those who care to join us on a Friday night. And we're, of course, joined by Rob Kendall from 93.1. Bam.
And Ben, what are you doing for 4th of July?
I am going to probably, God willing, be at our little chalet in North Idaho, in Sandpoint, Idaho, looking out at the fireworks and being awfully glad that I'm an American.
And
have you ever shot off fireworks? You do your own fireworks?
Oh, I love fireworks. When I was a child, I was obsessed with fireworks. Obsessed. I mean, really fucking obsessed. I'm really, really obsessed. But I mean, I'm a little old to do that now, and I'm a little old to do anything.
And I will give everybody that heads up, because I had a family member, I believe it was Uncle Moishi. It was not fireworks, it was dynamite. So please be careful. But Carrie C has read our mind, Ben Boychuk, about the next topic. Ben Boychuk.
Yes.
Very, very respectful. I don't think we've hit this topic hard enough. The sinister nature of this topic, the fact that a prosecutor can go after a very large political movement in this country and do everything possible to shut it down with the limitless resources of the government is just absolutely breathtakingly bad. And we really have to do something to think about this. And if I may say so, I went after Trump when I was a columnist for Barron's and a great financial magazine. And I did find that indeed, at least it seemed to me, there was some considerable wrongdoing, but not enough to put a person in prison. A fine, yes. Banning from public trade or trading for a few years, yes. The perp walk and then prison, wow, that's incredible.
And it goes to show you the fear they still have of him. And
Yes.
because if
Yes.
If they didn't still fear him, he wouldn't matter. And not only just do they fear him, they need his ratings, because as you see, Jake Tapper has lost 75% of his viewership since Trump is gone. That isn't.
And he says it's because he's such a great reporter. That's really funny.
Yeah, that is hysterical. But no, this next story goes to it on an even deeper level, because it's sort of the same thing. This is prosecutors going after you. But Ben Stein, Ben Boychuk, this next story is Facebook is asking people to go after their own. Ben Boychuk.
So today, Facebook, if you're lucky enough to or foolish enough to be on Facebook, you may have received a message that said something like the following: are you concerned that someone you know is becoming an extremist? We care about preventing extremism on Facebook. Others in your situation have received confidential support. And then you can click on a button. Or the one even better, there's another version of the message that says, hey, Ben, hey, Rob, hey, Judah, you may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently. Violent groups try to manipulate your anger and disappointment. You can take action now to protect yourself and others. And then you can click on a button, and they've established a support group, which as of today had something like 35 members, 5 of whom are administrators.
Oh my God.
I would like to say that this is yet additional evidence of something that Ben Boychuk and I discussed several months ago about the case in West Virginia, in which the court held that a private entity could be held to be restrained by constitutional restraints, even though it's not part of the government. At this point, Facebook is behaving very much like a governmental entity, and this merits very powerful litigation.
Well, there's lawsuit already in California. It's not specifically related to this that I just spoke of, but it has to do with how Facebook and the government of California may have colluded in, essentially it alleges that Facebook worked unlawfully with state officials to suppress information. And
I don't know this. I would like to know more about that.
Yeah, I'll have to dig it up. I don't have it in front of me.
But on that note, Rob Kendall, who was on Facebook today, actually got one of these messages.
Did you?
I did, and I thought it was a pop-up ad the first time I got it. But here's the thing. These big tech companies know, because the Democrats, they're an arm of the Democrat Party, that even though the Democrats are going to talk tough against them, they're not going to do anything about it, especially the Section 230 stuff. So why wouldn't they continue to keep doing this? No matter how far they push, nothing's going to happen to them because they are working arm in arm with the Democrat Party.
What is Section 230, please?
It's the platform and publisher. So they get these protections as a platform, but they're operating, or as a publisher, but they're operating as a platform. So they get protections, or it's the other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah.
It's Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996.
So they're getting the best of both worlds. They're literally having their cake and eating it too. They're censoring people, yet they're getting protections based on the idea that you don't censor people. And because the Republicans aren't in power, and many of the Republicans won't take them on either, there's nothing that's going to happen to them.
Wow. Again, we have a situation where creeping Bolshevism is now it's at a gallop.
But Ben, it goes deeper than that, Ben Stein. We often talk about the thread, that thin thread of this country. And I've been listening to that song recently that I had just found, Eve of Destruction. And it really does feel like we're on
Sergeant Barry Maguire.
Yeah, and it really does feel like we're on the eve of destruction sometimes, Ben. They're asking fellow countrymen to rat on country, or to not even rat, to make accusations, to slander, to.
It's worse than that, because they're not asking, did your neighbor commit a crime? They're not saying, did he break into someone's house? Did he rape your daughter? They're asking, did he show extremist views, or was he exposed to that? Or, which is to say, was he taking advantage of free speech under the Constitution? If he's taking advantage of free speech under the Constitution and speaking his mind and letting other people speak their mind, we're going to go after him. That is really, really scary. that's not just scary, terrifying. I'm very, very glad I have a home in North Idaho. I'm going to be hiding there for a long time. Don't anybody come looking for me because it's not that big a home.
Ben Boychuk, let me ask you a question, and this goes to Rob because both of you are active on Facebook. Have either of you thought about looking into past comments?
Yes. Yeah. I don't do political stuff on Facebook anymore for just this reason. But just this week, a friend of mine deleted his old account and started a new account because he was getting he was getting posts that were 3, 4, 5 years old, flagged, and he was in danger of just having his account shut down, and so he preemptively shut it down and then started a new one. And his rationale was actually pretty funny. He said, I got rid of 10 years of their data. I'm starting fresh. I've screwed up their algorithm, so it's kind of a win-win.
But you're friends with him, so
Right.
you need to start. And obviously, Rob Kendall, when you delete a friend, it never deletes. Nothing ever deletes online.
Yeah.
And have you thought about doing any of that stuff, or you just don't give a crap, Rob?
No,
Kendall?
I don't care. Most of my stuff is how much the Republicans suck. So I think Facebook kind of likes me. So that's kind of my thing. The Republican who says how bad the Republicans are. No, I mean, I've never said anything racist or homophobic. Or
Rob,
like
this isn't racist or homophobic.
It's not even that. Yeah.
This is nothing to do with that. This is, did you or your family ever support Trump?
But everybody knows. Look right here. Everybody knows I support Trump. That's not news.
But Ben Stein, that's where we're going. Do you know?
We're not going.
We're there.
My dear friend Judah. We're there. And I would never have thought it would get so bad so quickly. I am. My blood curdles at this, and I'm very, very worried about this future of this incredibly, wonderfully great country. I wonder who is doing this in the Biden government. I don't think Biden knows how to count his fingers and toes. So I wonder who's pulling the strings here.
Well,
well, I was just gonna say, Ben makes a great point, or branches off into a great point, which is for people like me, there's nothing to hide. Like, I say this stuff every single day on the largest radio station in the state of Indiana. So it's not a big deal for me. Thank you, Ben. But it is a big deal for the person who quietly goes to work each day and their political views could impact their position with their employer. Those are the people who are worried.
I think you should be worried. It's the whole thing is just blood-curdlingly scary.
No, and Ben Boychuk, it goes to this. It goes to if you've been on Facebook, I'm not anymore because of whatever, but I'm not. But I have family members on there. You post something, you click like. All it takes is for your neighbor to just, I mean, what's to stop your neighbor who didn't like how you mowed your lawn to accuse you now of being a domestic terrorist? Because that's essentially what they're saying you are. Let's be real. You're a white supremacist domestic terrorist.
There's also something else to it.
And I'm not going to that to you because you're bald, but go on.
Thanks. And wearing a print shirt.
Yeah.
So there's something else to this. And if you, I don't know how many people will remember this, but Mark Zuckerberg in 2018, one of his appearances before Congress, was asked about hate speech and what Facebook is doing to confront hate speech. And what he said at the time was in some ways even more scary than the idea of your friends or your neighbors ratting you out, which is, we think we can find the solution by refining our algorithms. And I raised the question in a column that I was writing at the Sacramento Bee at the time, who's developing the algorithms? There's human beings develop algorithms. And so the biases of the human beings developing the algorithms are going to be the ones that are really judging what counts as hate speech. And so I suspect, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that a lot of these posts that are getting flagged that are 5 or 6 years old, algorithms are doing that. And they're picking up on keywords, and they're sophisticated enough where they can look at images. And so in a way, it's kind of a retroactive corporate censorship,
What could you give me an idea, since I really have no idea, what would be a kind of word that this program would pick up and brand you as a subversive?
Faggot.
What do you mean? Wait, back up. That brands you as a subversive?
Well, it's a species of hate speech, and the argument.
There's no law against saying the person is a homosexual.
On Facebook, using that word is because they're a private company and they can say and dictate, right, Ben Boychuk? What?
Right.
So go on.
So
that's not the fact that Facebook doesn't like it doesn't make it a punishable offense.
Well, they would say that their terms and conditions, they want to have a safe space for everybody. And, this is the logical culmination of the arguments in favor of hate speech laws. Words wound, right? This argument goes back 30, 35 years. That words wound. Words are weapons. That words can hurt, not just sticks and stones. And that corporations are implementing that logic on their platforms. And the reason why I mentioned that word in particular was a few months back, a friend of mine who's somewhat non-political, had posted something about Hunter S. Thompson, and post your favorite Hunter S. Thompson quote. And I pulled my favorite quote from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where he talks about why bother with journalism if this is all they have to offer. And he goes on to describe journalism in the most beautifully graphic terms. It was a quote I had up in my office at UCSD 30 years ago when I was editor-in-chief of the college paper. I'm sure I would get into huge trouble for that today.
There's tons of stuff.
When we say tons of trouble, meaning he's not. They're going to dislike you at Facebook.
No,
if they dislike you.
They're going to take your account away.
They take, not only can they take your account away, Ben, you could be reported as an extremist.
Yeah.
There is no law against being an extremist.
Not yet.
Not Ben. Ben Boychuk just said it. Yeah, great. Not yet.
Not yet. Not when you have. See, this again. You have very large corporations, arguably monopolies, that are capable of acting in ways that government cannot.
Okay, so Ben, just so you know, I just want to tell you, somebody in the chat said they got flagged on Facebook for saying men can't have babies a few months back. No joke.
Yeah. Men can't have babies a few months back.
She posted men can't have babies because of transgender people, when you have this, if you have that sex, when a woman becomes a man, she could still have a baby. So what Norma, I guess, was saying is, and she got flagged, and that's where we're at. This is, as you say, extremely frightening stuff. But on a lighter note, hey, Bill Cosby's out of prison. And but
I want to go back just a moment, if I can. Here I am sitting in my office. I was just eating a hamburger. Judah wouldn't let me finish it. It was really good. I made it myself, and Judah wouldn't let me finish it. So what can Facebook do?
Okay, Ben, they're reporting it to
me. What does it mean?
It means, Ben, okay, Ben, the whole point of why they're doing this, right? So the whole point of that button of what that Rob got today was if you flag somebody for extremism or for hate speech, that they can report it to the government,
to the FBI.
To the FBI. Now, what the FBI decides to do with that is another story, but knowing our FBI, they'll go after you, not like they've caught the terrorists. They have the terrorists, but they're going to go for us. And that's essentially what we're saying is going on. It's beyond Facebook, Rob. It goes right from Facebook to being reported to your local authorities.
But I want to come back to something Ben Boychuk said earlier, which is the algorithm. Because I say super inflammatory things all the time. And I've never been one time I got a warning or a whatever they call it for something I said. And on mine, every day say super inflammatory things about politicians. So there has to be words they're looking for. There has to be key phrases they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what triggers it without rhyme or reason.
It's like there was that wonderful movie, Enemy of the State. And I don't know
Gene
if anybody,
Hackman.
with Gene Hackman and Will Smith. It was a really good movie, and it was basically a follow-up, in a sense, to the movie The Conversation, which was
very good movie.
One of the greatest. And this goes back to the 90s, and that goes back to the 70s, where you're on the phone, and if you say certain flag words, certain words, you have to be very careful. I have a friend in the business and in the entertainment industry that's extremely careful with what he says to me on the phone. And people are, and he's extremely careful what he shares in public and private. He's whispering half the time. I can't understand the word he's saying. I'm like, call me later, or like, pigeon carry me later. But on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to That Man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, and Rob Kendall. You did good on Free the Cause, hashtag Free the Cause. You could eat your Jell-O pudding again. And I'm kidding, Rob Kendall never did that. It would be funny though if he did. Yes,
my mother had the Bill Cosby Live cassette when I was a kid, and we used to listen to that in the car on a loop. Hey, Bill Cosby's a terrible person, but that chocolate cake bit is one of the greatest comedic bits of all time.
Hey, listen, the Cosby Show was an exceptional show. You have to, don't take away the art of sometimes, and that's next too, by the way, is obviously we've seen them flagging movies, Ben Stein, on HBO, some of your favorite movies like Gone with the Wind. What comes after flagging?
I don't know. You tell me. I know nothing about
removal for the public good.
I'm going to tell you. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon, sir.
Removal for the public good.
Let me just tell you, with respect, a close family member, very close, not wifey, the world's most wonderful human being, but an absolute goddess, but another very close relative. I was asking that person if she liked the movie Gone with the Wind. I said, Alex, that's my wife, she's a saint. She and I watch it over and over again. And my relative said, oh, that movie is strictly verboten in our house. And I said, why? She said, because it shows the happy darkies that's working on the plantation. And I said, but wait a minute. That was a depiction of a historical event in the eyes of a novelist. It's not supposed to tell you that slavery is a good thing. There's nowhere in it that they say slavery is a good thing. And she said, no, strictly verboten in ours. The idea that political correctness has reached a pitch so hot and heavy that within a household, you can be censored within your own household, not censored, censured within your own household, that is really scary.
And Ben Stein brings up a great point, Ben Boychuk and Rob, is that they're erasing history. And when you erase history, as we see with critical race theory, they're creating a new history that didn't exist, Ben Stein.
My son, an incredibly smart human being, and I are very great fans of a TV show called Ren and Stimpy. And when one of the most wonderful episodes is where, I forget whether it's Ren or Stimpy, I think it's Ren, Ren Hoek, is tempted to press the history erase button. And that is exactly what is happening very well right now in America. We are trying to press the history erase button. It's frighteningly terrible.
It is, Rob, and it is, and people don't realize what critical race theory is. They really don't realize it, and it's reinventing, it's reimagining history that didn't exist. It's basically like this is my truth.
Well, it's saying that the original sin of America, which is slavery, is so great that the country cannot be redeemed. It is simply unredeemable, and it is pushed by radical leftists who want to tear this country down. They don't want to reform it. They don't want to make it better. They want to tear it down and start all over again and build the country in their image. And the public school system, just like with these prosecutors, they've done a great job of getting radical leftists elected to school boards, who then hire radical leftist superintendents and administrators who push this on kids, not American exceptionalism, but that America is an evil, awful place and you're guilty simply by being white.
This is so horrible. I hardly know where to begin. It's so horrible. I thought we were going to talk about Judah's dating life.
No, Judah doesn't like talking about his dating life, Ben Boychuk, but that really is what's going on with the critical race theory. And I want to get to you quickly and then get to the next topic, because it's really important, because I believe this is all a diversion. And I want to get that to the next topic, but go finish it up. Ben.
Well, no, just that a couple of things. Well, I'll just make one point and urge everybody who's listening or watching this to consider this. We all have an obligation now. Oh, look at that. We all have an obligation now to be Irish monks.
Oh,
and the Irish monk during the medieval period, it was the monks who preserved Western civilization from being completely obliterated. And so we all have to be monks now.
You were about to become a monk too.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I mean, if you look over my shoulder over there, I got a stack of books.
What are they? I was wondering what they were.
Everything.
There's nothing inside them, Ben.
It's everything. No. It's everything. I'm a bit of a bibliomaniac, to be frank. I have wide-ranging interests, and the thing is, in the age of Kindle, when Amazon can literally remove books from your Kindle, or and it's conceivable that they could change the language of the books on your Kindle. The only safe thing is to have physical media, and so
that I agree with entirely. Rob, you haven't been talking enough. Go for it.
Oh, well, I have a big question for you later, but I'm just enjoying Ben's rehashing here of something very true, which is the digital presence, while it has been great in terms of convenience, has given great power to the people who provide the digital presence.
By the way,
own the books. You don't.
I just want to raise a point that Rockbreath just brought up in the chat, and Rockbreath said they're going to change the textbooks. Rockbreath, they already have. If you read, have you ever read anything positive in a textbook about one of the greatest presidents that's ever lived, Richard Nixon? They've totally distorted history. They've totally and one of the funniest things I've ever heard was it was D.L. Hughley was on.
I worked with him once on a show,
and he supposedly is a nice guy, and he was on one of those shows, Bill Maher, and he said they were talking about when they changed Tom Sawyer and
wait a minute. Today's Tom Sawyer, a mean guy. Modern day warrior, mean pride.
Exactly. Good Rush reference. Even though Gary.
Are you a Rush fan, Ben?
Yes, of course.
He's and so is Gary Collins, and so am I. I'm one of the biggest Rush fans. But he said something so funny on the show. He said, when they changed it they took the N-word out, and they put instead, I believe, slave. Instead, they switched slave with the N-word, and he said, I'd rather be an N than a slave.
Yeah,
he said at the end of the day, a slave doesn't go home, an N does. And I just thought it was one of the really one of the funniest little bits. It was funny to me. Nobody else is laughing. But yes, raise your hand, Ben Boychuk.
I was just peeking at the comments on the YouTube chat. I just wanted to follow up just for 2 seconds on the monk thing. Yeah, a bunch of monks got killed. And no, not everybody's cut out to be a monk. My point is, we have a duty and an obligation in this crisis to preserve civilization. That's our obligation, because
that's a big one too.
The forces arrayed against us are trying to strip civilization away.
You really raise a great point, Ben Boychuk, and one that I'm actually in love with right now. It's like you're talking about like the guardians of the gate. You're talking about people that have to sadly collectively go underground with all the texts in history and all the basic textbooks, and really to preserve this great country, because the way they're changing it, we're not going to know it.
The book you all need to get is Thomas Cahill's How the Irish Saved Civilization.
I cannot second that strongly enough. Very important book.
Brilliant point, Ben. Yeah, Ben, Rob.
It does say something too. We talked about this on the air quite a bit.
Can't believe we're discussing this.
Facebook, as one of the large digital platforms, was originally designed for dating, right? Like when I first got on Facebook as one of the original, the OGs of Facebook, when you had to have a college email to get on Facebook, it was to hook up with chicks. It was to slide in the DMs. And somehow this thing that was designed for guys like me who couldn't get a date to hook up with chicks on the internet has become this giant. Hey, I wasn't as good looking then as I am now. WeGrowHairIndie.com. But now it's become this giant platform that controls all forms of communication. In a 15-year period of time, this has happened, and it's bizarre.
I mean, I said sort of jokingly, not jokingly, I can't believe we're even discussing this thought of getting a bunch of people to go underground with books and texts and our basic principles of the Constitution and all that stuff, because it is being erased before our eyes. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I'm loving this show tonight because it's really, I'm learning and I'm learning. And it's okay to be scared, but learn and fight back. But we're joined from by Ben Boychuk from AM Greatness, and of course Rob Kendall, the president of Conservative Talk Radio, and Benjamin Jeremy Stein, and of course everybody in the chat. It's been great tonight. We love it. But I want to get one more topic in, which is I really do believe a lot of this is a diversion. A lot of this is a diversion.
A diversion from what, sir?
From the eye on the prize of the election that had no interference whatsoever and was the greatest election of all time, and there was no interference. And the Supreme Court today, which is normally the most extremely bipolar Supreme Court, came down with an extremely important ruling that's making the left go mad. Ben Boychuk, can you please tell the story?
So the case is Brnovich, who is Mark Brnovich is the Attorney General of Arizona versus the Democratic National Committee. And the Supreme Court today ruled 6-3 that Arizona's laws attempting to, secure the vote and also
no more ballot harvesting, that those are perfectly constitutional, that they do not violate the Voting Rights Act. And that clears the way for other states to ban ballot harvesting, probably because ballot harvesting is an extremely pernicious practice. It very easily allows fraud. It allows ballot box stuffing, because a lot of essentially, Ben Boychuk, if I could sum it up, because a lot of people don't know what it is, because it
is balanced.
Right.
It allows
it is balanced.
Right. But it allows you to go into a nursing home and collect 300 people's ballots and fill it out for them. Right. And they use the term ballot harvesting because it sounds nicer than collecting people's ballots that have Alzheimer's or other issues. And so it's the Supreme Court finally got something correct. They wouldn't hear election cases, but they're hearing these cases, Ben Stein. So that is a sign of hope, a little bit, maybe.
It is a little. We have to look for every single sign of hope we can find, and maybe the Supreme Court will come to its senses and realize that right under our noses, someone is stealing our Constitution.
It's a good ruling. When it's a good ruling, when everybody on the left predictably is freaking out and is essentially saying this is a preemptive strike on what the Congress is attempting to do with the badly named For the People Act, which would essentially federalize elections and legalize ballot harvesting across the country. And the Supreme Court said, no, not necessarily. And it's well within the realm, the purview of the states, as the Constitution makes perfectly clear. The states get to regulate the time, place, and manner of elections. Federal government has no role in that. And so the federal government doesn't get to say, You can't put reasonable restrictions on things like on novel policies like ballot harvesting, which really only enables Democrats to steal votes. I mean, frankly, Republicans maybe need to get better at,
getting into the mental institutions and the cemeteries.
Pretty much,
we need to do a better
cemeteries,
job of getting,
and finding candidates to run for local elections, as Rob was talking about earlier. Why, this is stuff that the Democrats have understood forever, and Republicans, in 30 plus years of having term limits in California, for example, Republicans still haven't figured out that you need to get people elected to school boards and put on water boards and all these tiny little boards that nobody gives a crap about, which is how you develop a bench, which is how you get people elected to state offices, which is how you get people in the state legislature, state Senate, state assembly, and how stuff gets done. That's what the Democrats understood immediately, and that's what they've been doing. And the Republicans sit around here and say, "Oh, gee, we're the minority," and
they're going to come back. They're going to come back, Ben Stein, to the GOP. Ain't gonna happen.
With all due respect, there's no possibility of starting a third party that would be meaningful. At least I don't think there is.
No, there wouldn't be. But Ben, it goes to what you're saying. It's a party that it's the same party but a different platform, and a new platform.
Revitalized, re-energized Republican Party. That's why a few moments ago I was showing a picture of a very, very interesting American political figure, George Wallace. He revitalized and changed the entire electoral process in the United States. He at first was a terrible segregationist, and that was a sin, a really, really bad thing. But he changed, and what he said was, I'm not speaking out about race. I'm speaking out about the fact that the ruling class has never given a damn about what you people are working with a hard hat or with a typewriter or with a baker's apron are doing. They don't care about you at all, and I do. And from that sprang Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan said, I'm going to be the person who is going to care about you and care about your well-being and care about your future. And from everybody learning from George Wallace came a whole new dimension in conservative politics. Now the conservatives have forgotten about that. Now the conservatives have forgotten about, or at least the Republican Party, I should say, has forgotten about that and is now back to being the country club party. That's fine. I belong to a number of country clubs, and they're fine. It is great. Although I will tell you, it is very, very rare to get a good hamburger at a country club. I make much better ones myself. But let's get ourselves in gear and learn from George Wallace, not about being a segregationist, which was evil, but about getting in touch with the ordinary citizen.
No, you raise a great point, but Rob, let me get to this. Everything that seems to make the left go crazy with election laws and sort of, it's sort of amusing, not amusing, it's insane that everything when it comes to the election, past elections or future elections, if you have nothing to hide and you're not scared, what do you care? It shouldn't matter, Rob.
Well, the Democrats are super racist because what they allege in this lawsuit in Arizona is that black people are too stupid to know where to vote. I mean, that was the crux of their argument before the Supreme Court, was this law should be struck down because it unfairly punishes minorities.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking if somebody just tuned in, as you said, black people are just too stupid to vote. If they cut that clip, which is frightening. But anyways, go on. Sorry. But
that's, I mean, we're talking about this today on the air. That was the crux of their argument, that black people need our help because they don't know how to read and go where to vote. It's super racist, which Democrats do this all the time. And yet they try to say Republicans are the racist. This argument was super racist.
I saw this in Maxine Waters in the 70s. I was fighting against her tooth and nail when we had the busing controversy in Los Angeles, and the voters of Los Angeles over and over and over again in referenda voted to not have busing. Never mind, the courts mandated busing, and Maxine Waters was jumping for joy. And I remember so well debating with her. I honestly can't remember whether it was in person or in print, saying, why do you think black people are too stupid to be able to learn unless they're sitting next to white people? I think that is the most evil racist idea I've ever heard in my life.
No, you're completely right, Ben Boychuk. I saw you shaking your head, nodding.
Oh yeah, no. The condescension. It's so funny to me that on the one hand, anybody to the right of, I don't know, Nancy Pelosi is a bigot, and yet it's as if the Democrats really believe that their constituency is little better than infants, and black citizens in particular. And so, and there have been, I love how there in recent months, since this voting reform has become such an issue, that somebody, there's certain people, I think the Daily Caller and some others have taken the time to go out and like do man on the street interviews about, what do you think of voter ID? And all the nice white liberal girls say, oh, it's horribly racist. But when they actually talk to, middle-aged, black dudes, I said, well, I don't have a problem with it. Is it hard to get an ID? No. Where's the DMV? It's 2 blocks down the street.
Right.
I know where to go get an ID.
Yeah.
I'm not a moron.
Yeah. And Ben Stein, he's 100% correct. This crazy assumption and that people can't get it's moronic.
It's insane. There's on the internet, there's a video floating around of a very angry African-American man speaking out about critical race theory, about what a ripoff and how condescending and vicious it is towards blacks. And he makes perfect, total sense. Why do we need to have people hit on the head and told black people are smart? If black people are smart, we'll notice it. We will notice it easily and instantly. We're not going to have a problem noticing it.
No, I got to tell you, everybody, you raised exceptional points tonight. You all get 5 stars, major kudos. I'll give you a little sticker when I see you in person. Rob, I know you wanted to ask Ben something. Oh, Ben, he died this week, and obviously, and Rob, this is, and people have heard this story before. I was walking the dog one time with Ben, and I asked him why he left the administration of Ford. And he said to me, well, Donald Rumsfeld called me up and said, do you like your job, Ben? And Ben said, at the White House. And Ben said, yes. And Donald Rumsfeld said, well, you might want to start looking for another one. And I just always thought this was one of the coolest stories, because this was the height of when of Rumsfeld's, I guess, second fame, Ben. But you've met him. If you want to say anything,
I'm sorry to see him pass away. He like yours truly, was a great fan of the Eastern Shore of the Chesapeake Bay, and had a house there. And when I saw him at a dinner of the American Spectator a few years ago, he very kindly invited me to come and stay with him at his house. And I was very touched, and it's not in my world to hold grudges, so I didn't. And God bless him, and I'm sorry to see him go.
Yeah, rest in peace, and for his family. Rob, I know you wanted to ask Ben Stein a question.
Well, as you know, my dad is a huge...
just so you know, Ben Boychuk, Rob Kendall has the nickname Ben Stein Fanboy 00001.
I am overwhelmed.
Well, my dad is a huge Ben Stein fan too, so he specifically asked me to ask Ben this. Roger Stone has a new book coming out in which he alleges that Johnson killed Kennedy. And so I was wondering if you could enlighten us all on your relationship with Roger Stone, what he's really like, and who do you think killed Kennedy, Ben?
I've never met Roger Stone, to my recollection, although I might have met him in the waiting room of Fox News in Washington. It's possible I did. Otherwise, I certainly have not. There's no doubt, at least as far as I'm aware, that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy. And I think there's no doubt that he was motivated to do it and trained to do it by Fidel Castro, and maybe with the help of the KGB, but mostly with the work of the Castro crazy people, because Castro was genuinely crazy on the subject of John F. Kennedy. So it's very possible that it was done by Lee Harvey Oswald.
I know who did it. I know who killed JFK, and I know who killed Robert Kennedy.
Who?
You and me. It's a Rolling Stones reference. Come on, people.
I know the song very well.
Okay, Ben, somebody asked a question. I want to get to this. I guess they said in the book Set in the Woods on Fire, the movie, that where is it? Oh man, I lost it. They were saying something about Nixon and with papers and George Wallace. I don't know if that's true or not.
There's an allegation by a biographer of George Wallace that after Mr. Wallace was shot, some people in the Nixon administration or the Nixon campaign went to the shooter, Arthur Bremer, I think was his name, his apartment, and left Democrat campaign flyers to indicate that the shooter was a fan of the Democrats. I'm not sure that was true. I think it was pretty clearly true that he was mentally ill and was trying to get dates. Hey, people are online. Clue. And dates by being famous.
Ben, how could you and Stone not have crossed paths? He was like the ultimate Nixon guy. You're the ultimate Nixon guy.
No, because he wasn't the.
No. I was operating at a much more humble level. I was a worker bee. I was not a big wheel mocker, as we Jews say. I was a worker bee, working. Although in my book that I am working on right now, I do point out several times that I was actually spending time with Mr. Nixon, and he said some very, very funny things. He had an extremely good sense of humor.
And Roger Stone's claims of being as close or whatever in the circle is like you saying you're best friends with Facebook friend 4,675. But
or
if
like
you ever
me saying I killed Robert F. Kennedy.
Right. And if you ever really do want Roger Stone information, is Larry Klayman, and you could watch Larry deposing Roger Stone about a year ago, and it's a frightening. They don't get along, and I won't bring up why, but it's a very interesting watch. You could watch it on YouTube, and Larry Klayman, Roger Stone. But I want to remind everybody, we'll be back tomorrow night, Friday night. Ben will be in travel Saturday.
Where are we? What time are we going to do it tomorrow, my friend?
Same time, same bat station, always. We got to keep up the, what's that word, Ben?
Clock-like regularity.
The continuity. Continuity is important. Sorry, Ben?
The stuff.
We got to keep the mojo, and hopefully Rob Kendall will be back. I know Ben Boychuk can't make it. He's going on vacation to Lake Arrowhead. I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in tonight. I want to remind everybody to please download the podcast, give it a 5-star review. The comments were exceptional tonight. We love them all. Great questions. I'm sorry if I didn't get to any of them. We salute you, benstein.substack.com. Also, Ben, you could find them at spectator.org. Read his stuff. And if you could throw a few shekels to the spectator.org site. But of course, we have the Spectator and American Greatness, and both equally great. And even when you're spectating in,
sure,
great online sites. And I suggest you give to both if you can.
Spread it around. Spread it around.
Spread the love, spread the money, spread the reading. They're both worth it every day. They have great columnists every day, like Julie Kelly, who's incredible. We didn't get to talk about her, but if Ben wants to come on tomorrow night, we will talk about Julie Kelly. Rob, tell people where they can find you.
Weekdays, 9 to noon, the Mock and Rob Show on 93.1 WIBC, WIBC.com.
Bam. The future and president of conservative talk radio, Rob Kendall. And of course, this show wouldn't be complete without the most humble servant in America, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We salute you, sir. Please take us out.
You know, the landlord rang my front door bell. I let it ring for a long, long spell. I went to the window. I peeked through the blinds and asked him to tell me what was on his mind. He said, money, honey, money, honey, money, honey, if you want to get along with me.
Who sang that?
Are you fucking kidding?